It's showtime.
Hey.
Okay. Let me see. We're on. I got the chat going. I'm waiting for the numbers to pop up.
Okay.
Hello, if you can see us already. We're just going to wait a few seconds. Okay, there's the little eye. Okay, so if anyone's on already, let us know if you can hear us. Usually it's all good, so it's not too much of a concern.
I have to move here. There we go.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, let's roll.
Yay.
Welcome to the next installment. I forget which number this is of Tarot of the Holy Light. Hello. Hi, sweetie. I'm on a call now. Hold on. I have a visitor. 1 second, and then you have to go, okay? You want to say hi to everyone? Okay, one hello. Say hello.
Hi.
Okay, love. You have to go. Go get daddy. No. Yes, I'm live right now, so we got to do our talk. Okay, well, we'll wait till daddy comes in, but you got to be quiet. Okay. All right. So, it's my channel. I'm Julianne Victoria. This is Amy of Mystic Rose Tarot, and Mini Me is here barging in, watching for a minute or two. And we're going to talk about the second septenary, so the second 7 cards of the major arcana of Tarot of the Holy Light. We will be referencing the book Tarot of the Holy Light. I think I put a link below if you want to check that out. There is a second volume that we're not referencing yet, but it goes deeper into the esoteric tradition or the traditions as part of tarot and esoteric traditions. So so the first septenary, if you didn't watch that video, there's a playlist linked below as well, and there's one on Amy's channel too. Is the focus is on the individual and the individual's process and growth. The second septenary, which begins with justice, so it's like on the thought system, justice is 8, and goes through temperance, focuses on, and I wrote a note here, work in the world at large. That's how the creator, Christine Payne Towler, references it. So let's start with justice. Oh, and so in the septenaries in this system, right, which is fairly unique from, like, say, an RWS or a Thoth system. It comes in 2 groups of 3, and then the 7th card is sort of like a summation of it all. The first part of the 3 is the thesis, then the antithesis, and then the synthesis. In the groupings of the 3s. I hope I'm explaining this okay. Okay, sweetheart, you have to go now. Go on, Amy. I will be.
Okay.
Can I do this?
Yeah.
How do I get pushed you?
There you go. All righty. So as Julianne was saying, we're going to go from justice to the hermit, the wheel of fortune, strength, the hanged man, death, and temperance. So again, this is the mid-series of the major arcana of the second septenary for the Tarot of the Holy Light. So, as she mentioned, first septenary, we're dealing with the thesis, the beginnings. Hello, Tarot trainee. How are you? Thank you for coming in and joining. Feel free to listen. It's totally fine. I think more people will be coming in, but thank you for coming in and joining. So we're seeing this progression. We're seeing the relationship of the first 7 cards, how they relate to each other. And now in the second, we're in the mid part of this major arcana from justice to temperance to focus on the antithesis of the energy that's going on midpoint of the major arcana. And then we have the synthesis, which will take us from the devil to the Fool. Normally it would be the World card, but in this deck here, the Fool card is, as people who've practiced the tarot, represents the ending and the beginning. The world is actually the end. It's the culmination of the entire journey. So here with Justice, it's going to be very interesting because this is all taken from an esoteric point of view. So for those who are new to the tarot, this may be this may go a little bit over your head, but if you pull out, if you have like a Rider-Waite-Smith deck with you, feel free to just read along with it. And again, we're starting with Justice. So you can hear our relationship of how we're learning with the septenaries of the Tarot of the Holy Light, but you could follow through with your own deck, okay, and just kind of get a different perspective. So we're going to be focusing on the esoteric backgrounds of these major arcana archetypes, specifically the second septenary.
I'm back. I hear some screaming in the background for a little bit.
Oh dear.
It's one of those days. Okay. Hello, tarot trainee. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going. So Justice.
Justice.
Yes.
Excuse me. So Justice is a thesis card, right? In Tarot of the Holy Light, there's a lot of astrological connections, which we'll talk about. And I don't know if you said this, Kabbalah connections. We're not really talking about the Kabbalah because that's also Christine's kind of created her own system with it here. But if you don't know what Kabbalah is, it has to do with the tree of life.
Yeah.
So I just have that to show you guys. I was saying to Amy before we started that I feel Justice is really speaking to our times, where the welfare of the public and the collective and the people really needs to be thought about. Hi, Witch in the Woods. Thanks for being here. And I mean, I just love this guidebook. So if you just popped on the Tarot of the Holy Light guidebook, it's so rich and well written. I kind of just, we always say this, we just want to read the whole thing.
Yeah, which we are.
I love how she talks about, Justice is Sophia, the figure of law, Torah, nomos, which means law as well. In this form, she is the possessor of shrewdness in stagecraft and the scribal profession. Justice educates the common weal, which means welfare of the public, in the collective assembly, ensuring the sustainability of the culture despite the tendency of individuals to take advantage or tilt the playing field. So it's really focusing on what can we do as a group, as a community, as a collective for each other. It's very much a compassionate view rather than where the first septenary is like the growth, the individual. How can the individual basically kind of become self-empowered and step into yourself? Just looking at my notes here, what I starred. Hers, referring to Lady Justice, is the ancient justice principle that theoretically sorts out human relations in the cultural marketplace, the realm of trading and social exchanges, so how we interact with each other. So often we think of like the RWS justice, and it's Ma'at, the Egyptian goddess, who's pictured, and it's weighing our hearts against a feather, and it's about what have we done? How does the divine judge what we've done? Even well, here it's like, okay, what's the exchange between the individual and the collective? Because we are all part of the collective and various groups and collectives, and it's not. You can't really be separate from it, as much as some people may try to be like step out of it and separate from it, and or I hear this a lot lately, the misuse of the word sovereignty. Sovereignty doesn't mean be like selfish. And it's used sort of as like the euphemism for it's okay to be selfish and step on other people and do what you want and ignore your connection to everyone and everything around you. So I really like how she presented justice here. And it's interesting that it's associated with the astrological sign of Cancer, where in traditional tarot, Thoth, RWS, it's Libra, the scales, right? because she brought in like the mother energy of Cancer. It's compassionate, it's nurturing, it's not stepping on the individual's true sovereignty to be part of the community, the collective, the commonwealth, the wealth, and thinking of the welfare of the public. It's coming at it as recognizing yourself as part of that, and how can we be nurturing to ourselves and others. Like a very Buddhist perspective, like we are someone to take care of too, as part of the community, rather than like the hand up,
Yeah.
no, this is my way, and push everyone aside as if they're wrong. So there is that energy of, what is fair and just for all, not just what is fair and just for me, and I don't care about you, right?
Yeah. Again, the emphasis here, like Julianne was saying, is it's the collective, it's working together.
Right.
And so also when you look at the scales, because I work a lot with elemental energy, we have in the scales, we're balancing the fiery energy with the water. It's like our convictions versus emotionally how we're feeling, what we feel strongly drawn towards, the fire aspect, what motivates us, what moves us, but also doing that and moving from a place of the heart where you are, as she's mentioned, compassion, understanding. And that's why we have the placement of Cancer instead of Libra. That's normally associated. Hi, Sadhna. That is normally associated with the Justice card, because Libra is seen as a sign of, using that sword, using the double-edged sword, getting down to the root, getting down to the core, reasoning, finding those answers, which is fine in this process. Sorry, Julianne. I'm on a roll.
Go ahead.
So it's like, which is fine, but we also have to, Libra's air, but let's move and feel, let's move more from the heart when we do our actions. I'm doing for the sake of actions, just like for vengeance or anything. Understand why you have this desire and that forthright perspective of, going to things and making it for the betterment of everyone around you, as well as yourself, but think of everyone else involved in that.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like this Justice card, it kind of has a cold feeling to it.
Yeah.
In spite of the red robes, like, because that air energy, it's sort of like, okay, it's very, even though, justice is often connected to judgment card. It's like the judgment. Okay, you did this. That's not fair. Slice the sword, whatever.
Yeah.
Where this one, and especially with that Cancer connection, there's a warmth to it. At least, and I like I feel more warmth in this card, and she looks like a mother.
Yeah.
Very caring, and the flowing hair, where, I mean, this is somewhat androgynous, but it's supposed to be a woman. It's just sort of like that cold stare.
Yeah.
Like, okay, is your heart lighter or heavier than that feather? And here it's like, okay, what can we do? What's going to help everybody? Is that fair? Is that, just for most, if not all?
Yeah.
I really like her. I really
I mentioned to Julianne before we started that I thought the Justice card was just a little, we talked a little bit afterwards, but I just couldn't really place the energy. It's like, okay, Cancer, because some of you know I do astrology with the tarot, so I kind of get stuck in that rut. But, that Cancer is that softer side, our nurturing side. And so it's kind of hard to, when you get conditioned to knowing what these cards are associated with, normally RWS or astrologically, we also have to see the other side of it. So this is a wonderful way for me to look at the Justice card as masculine and feminine energy, working with those opposites.
The fire and the water.
Exactly, creating the balance.
And it does take a while to get used to the astrology in this deck, because it's different than RWS and thought, and like most decks, major systems. And that's why I feel like if you're studying this deck, do get the guidebook. There's a link below, because that helps in the understanding, and especially with the minors, which I discussed a lot of the the way the astrology system is set up, it helps, because when I first got this deck a year ago, I'm like, I don't get, like, it was like the cogs in my brain got stuck. I'm like, why is that sign? You know? So it's a deck that really does take study, and a long time to really work with, to really understand all that's attributed to it. Of course, you could just get it and read it like normal RWS if you want, but if you really want to like sink into it, yeah, let go of your mind's astrological associations. If you do that, not everyone works with those with tarot, and just see what the creator, see where her point of view is coming from.
I mean, that's why we're Julianne and I and other people who work with this deck, we're learning it, and we're learning it because we want to get a different perspective. You know, RWS is RWS. You know, the only thing that's different is just the artwork. You know, with the RWS here, it's a whole different system. So I've mentioned a few times that I'm now my deck collection, whatever you want to call it, is hardly RWS influenced. I have all these different systems that I'm learning. It can be mind-boggling, and I have to be careful with it. That's why I'm taking a break from astrology and just doing nature and animal, because it feels so much easier and less up here. But anyhow,
let me just answer Sadhna's. So the deck
please.
available, you have to Google search like Tarot of the Holy Light, and it will take you to the creator Christine Payne Towler's web, which has a different name, and it's like, I don't know how I found it, and I have to go back and figure out, like, I just kind of went through, or just contact her from there.
I'm gonna
I
look
remember
for it.
like I had to do some sleuthing to find it because it wasn't so obvious.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, that's
Do you
funny.
have the link on your website, Julianne?
Not on
No?
my.
Okay.
Let me just.
I'm looking for it too, so that it's here. Actually, I'm going to go through her website.
Yeah, her website is called.
I got it.
Noria Brownfield. It's her publication. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, there it is.
I can't do it. You have to do it. I forgot.
Okay.
Because of my
Yeah, I
StreamYard
found it.
setup.
I will. Let me add this link to our chat. Okay, the deck.
I'm gonna Sadhna,
like a year ago, it was harder to find. Like it wasn't so.
Sadhna, I'm curious. You got the book, but not the deck. So I was curious why you said you got the Euclid Tarot. I don't know the Euclid Tarot.
Well, because the book you can get on Amazon.
Correct.
So it's very easy to find. So that's the link for the deck. She must have done some SEO or something because that popped up right away.
Yeah, I don't know Euclid. I don't know the Euclid Tarot. That doesn't come up. Okay.
But yeah, so there's the link. I don't know if you click that, if it will take you away from the live during it, but I'll add it to the comments below afterwards. Okay. Okay, moving on.
Yes, let's keep going.
Okay. So next we move on to the Hermit. Oh, was there anything else?
There was a lot, but we can keep going.
What I want, yeah, what I would say anyway.
Oh, can I state something, Julianne?
Yes.
Sorry. One thing that I thought was fascinating with this, and sort of jumping ahead, but we're going to get to this card. I wrote, oh, you got it too. The Justice, this is what she writes, Christine Payne Towler, actually is the prepping for the card of Temperance, because we're balancing opposing forces. So we're getting into the early stages of how we are going to work with these opposing energies. And then when we get to the card of Temperance, which we're not going to show just yet, just keep in mind, look at visually how this card looks to you, how it reads to you, how it feels to you. Hold those energies, and then when we get to the Temperance card, you'll see an interesting relationship as to how Justice and the journey of the second Septenary gets to the Temperance. It's pretty interesting.
And one last thing I want to add for the last page on temperance. A prerequisite for earning the right to affect other people's lives is our willingness to consider their feelings and their reality as being of equal magnitude and importance as our own, which I think is so important to have true compassion. We can't move on until we learn the lesson of justice, which is to put ourselves in the shoes of everyone whose lives our decisions might impact.
Okay.
Which I think is so profound, because I always think like Indra's web or Indra's net, like we make a decision, we think, oh, it's just this one thing. It's not linear. Our impact of everything we do affects in so many ways, we probably can't imagine it all. But just trying to let go of, oh, this only affects me, and seeing, this could do this could do that. And whatever's going on in our lives is to really try to look at it. We can never truly see other people's perspectives, but try to see other people's perspectives and how our actions might impact others positively or negatively.
Yeah. The other thing too, being present.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen. Sorry. Is being present when you're going through these septenaries. This, in particular, the second septenary. I'm always doing past, present, future, but here, throughout this second septenary, from justice to temperance, it's being present at the moment, which we should be anyhow with all the archetypes, but specifically here, because we're utilizing the forces and the experiences from the first septenary. We're starting to experience it. Now we're understanding, we're trying to get a grasp onto it. And then when we get to the third septenary, it's all those thoughts and actions that we've experienced, what the end result is. That's the basis of the archetypes. We're going through this journey.
Sadhana asks, these are big cards. They're bigger than standard tarot. So I pulled this out for later, but this is your typical small Hanson Roberts. So it's bigger than a standard tarot deck, which would be like here. So yeah, they're bigger, not super big. This is the monster size that I bought. It's like as a teaching tool. So the monster size RWS compared to Tarot of the Holy Light. So it's a little bigger. It's probably 2.5 by 5. So it's like an Oracle deck size. Yeah.
That sounds about right, Sadhana. They're easy to shuffle. The quality's good. It's plastic coated. So, and it's matte, so there's no glare or anything.
3.5 by 5.5.
That sounds about right. Well, maybe not 5.5.
I don't think it's 3.5 by 5.5, unless it's changed. Oh, I think there's a deluxe edition. There's like a big one. There's different sizes. Oh, I think the link I gave is to the deluxe edition came up. So just go and look for the smaller edition there.
Yeah, I think there are
the bigger ones. Okay. Okay. All right, moving on. Lovely Hermit. So the Hermit is associated with Leo in this system, which may be like, what? First, like, what?
No astrology.
Some points I underlined here. And the Hermit, the possessor of Gnosis, not only has the light, but is the light, the guide for others. The Hermit highlights Sophia's link with prophets and diviners whose calling it is to interpret the oracles. The Hermit occupies a location accessible only to the intrepid. So it takes courage, which is the Leo energy, right? I will say there's an error in the guidebook here.
Oh, you caught something?
Because she says, Trismegistus, which is spelled wrong a few times, so there's some typos. This was an interesting one. Means thrice born, which it does not. It means thrice great. So Megistus is greatness. Okay. So I noticed that as a classical linguist. Yeah. So at any age, the Hermit arranges daily life to avoid unnecessary worldly demands so as to protect the privacy necessary to maintain a deep immersion in nature. But it's not that sort of like selfishness it's still part of, because it's second septenary of what can I do for the collective? And in this case, it's more of nature. She points out the hermit has left cultural time, but his goal is to not only hold the light, but to be the light, to guide others. So it's through the hermit's experience and stepping outside of culture, outside of, you could say, societal restrictions, that he's then able to shine his light and then help others without, you could say, those material, physical, ego distractions. But it's not a resistance energy, because sometimes, if I was pulling out RWS, maybe sometimes, depending on the reading, I'd say, it's time for you to kind of just break away from things and go on your own and just focus on you. That's not what this hermit is. This hermit is, how can I step out of societal restrictions in order to help society or the community and be a better guide? Does that make sense?
It does.
And then a little on the Leo stuff. She writes, self-motivated and self-created. This hermit demonstrates attributes and attitudes of Leo, the fixed fire sign, that is the natural home of the sun. The hermit is alone in a magical landscape much of the time, following inner lights, not answering to outside sources, having long ago solved the problem of survival. The hermit lives entirely on personal terms, as if high on the holy mountain. For the hermit, the superficials of cultural reality become insubstantial and fade away. And that's why he's distanced, for it to not be what consumes him as an individual, so that he can be that light, that guide. Yeah. Is there anything else? Yeah.
There's the connection with the serpent that's wrapped around him, which is representing, yes, it's representing his connection to the conscious realm. But it also, when I was reading this, is relating to untamed instincts. So this is our connection, in a sense, that keeps the hermit grounded. So that's not so much in the celestial realm, and getting lost in that. Excuse me. It's still keeping firmly rooted to where it is, but also not allowing the distraction of the serpent of earthly material, the conscious realm, to overtake. Just like what Julianne was saying, it's like the focus is on the priority of taking care of others through the natural influence of being self-motivated and self-centered. I also highlighted that as well because I thought that was wonderfully stated.
I love how he's holding the sun rather than the
Exactly.
lantern.
Yes.
It connects to that Leonine energy. But also it's, the sun is symbolic of God, the source, the universe, the light, our souls in astrology. So he can guide the souls. He has his own light to guide other people's souls who live here in the village while he keeps himself undistracted by this so that he can help those there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how he's got the staff of wisdom as well. Yeah. And the dove of peace. She goes into the dove more in Temperance quite a bit.
Yep.
I'll talk about it there.
It's an all-seeing eye, the cosmos. This is the knowledge that the hermit has and needs to, wants to share it with people. Also, if you look around in relation, we have the cosmic serpent. So we have the celestial, but it's not eating its own tail, which is interesting. Well, if you move the card lower, we see the Ouroboros effect of the cycle, of being connected, doing the same mundane activities, so on and so forth.
Use the cycle of reincarnation into the earthly realm until you get it.
Yeah, you got to move out of it.
Transcend, right?
So it's actually interesting because it's the terrestrial, then we have the celestial, and I'm sorry, Julianne, I'm having a slip. What's in between the celestial and between the celestial and terrestrial planes? what's the physical?
That's terrestrial, is physical. There's etheric.
Oh, I think
Or astral.
I'm thinking below. I'm thinking below the terrestrial.
The underworld.
Yeah, I thought there's another
Subterranean.
word. What is it?
The subterranean, the
Possibly.
demonic. Depends on what system. I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
know.
I
Yeah.
think I'm mixing the words. So sorry,
Okay.
everyone. I'm just focusing on those two.
And then just as a comparison, because we all know this, this is ruled by Virgo, which isn't, an earth sign. And it is that, go off by yourself, be alone to find that inner light, where this is more like the hermit's got the light and he's here to shine it for others. There's a very like contrast in these energies of these images here. Yeah.
They both have the same purpose, but it's just how they utilize it, how they use it.
Yeah. Or even different stages.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was just thinking, like in a reading, if this came up, I'm more likely to tell a client, like, you need to spend some time in meditation alone or retreat or something.
Yeah.
And if this one came up, I might be more likely to say, you need to seek out a teacher, a guru, a guide. To me, at least, they kind of have that. You need to seek your own inner guide. And this one, I'd be like, you might need to seek someone who can guide you.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Or if you already have, or if you have a spiritual practice, there's maybe that moment of awakening, and it's time to express, share again the knowledge that you have. Many different layers.
Yeah, different. And this one's it's kind of cold, it's snowy and dark, and this one's all has that Leo warmth.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Things that come into my head as we talk.
You'll see the process as we show you all these cards, because this is pre-traditional astrology, alchemy, Kabbalah influences. So there is a lot of symbology in it that the book doesn't really go into great detail in some of the cards. It just focuses on the general overview meaning with some historical background for some of these cards.
Yeah.
So it is a lot, but it's very useful. It definitely helps you see, as you're seeing already, the different perspectives of these cards,
and even like different feels of them.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
I mean, these just feel starkly different from each other.
Yeah. It's like RWS is just it's the strictness and the background of how RWS came from. Well, here we have the esoteric, spiritual enlightenment, like to shine this stuff out, but also to be aware of the other forces that are going on in some of these cards. Don't take it lightly, but to be aware. There's so much information.
Yeah,
that's in these cards. So,
and she also has qualities of the cards. And I would point that the quality of the Hermit is House of Descendants.
Yes.
So it's how can you guide the future? Who's to come? If this came up, say in a reading, like, I don't know what your question would be. Let's say that came up in a reading and you did a reading, you pulled the Hermit card, you might question from this deck, okay, how can I be a positive influence for the future, for the younger generation, for the descendants? So I find those qualities interesting. Just to backtrack, Justice was House of Ancestors. So it's kind of like what has been done. And is justice being served, or how can we?
How about how we can learn from our past, from what we've inherited, and how we can apply that as
a lesson of justice, right? How she says we learn the lesson of justice, which is to put ourselves in the shoes of everyone whose lives our decisions might impact. It's like being the ancestor and then thinking of the descendants. There's more to these cards than we're really, because we're not even getting to the Kabbalah, but just to ponder and think about.
This is a study deck for us, for those who don't know. So
Yeah, for those who first watching this one and haven't watched all the other ones from the past year, we chose to do this as part of our studying this deck together and then sharing it with you guys. So share anything if you've been working with this deck, you have
Please.
to pipe in, let us know.
Yeah.
Our questions just pop in. And I know Mira Mari is here. Hi, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so moving on to the Wheel of Fortune. So in Christine Payne-Teller's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, the Justice is the thesis, the Hermit is the antithesis, and the Wheel of Fortune is synthesis. So the bringing together of the thesis and antithesis, right? And in essence, the kind of opposite energies. So Wheel of Fortune is associated with Virgo in this deck. And since I brought up the quality is House of Health. So it's a very healing energy. And we think of synthesis, things coming together, yin and yang coming together, which she goes into much more in Temperance. It is a healing process. And she writes here, the Wheel of Fortune evokes the law of karma, which simply stated means that reality is round. The wheel, she says, this little craft floats upon the turbulent ocean of the subconscious, reminding us how dependent fate is on accident and synchronicity, which is interesting because it's like bringing in, like accident, randomness, and synchronicity. Nothing's random. Maybe compromising those.
Yeah.
I wrote a little like symbol of like, the wheel spinning. And if we look at, I have to hold it up, like there's a wheel within a wheel. So there's an outer wheel, an inner wheel, and then the lemniscate, the infinity symbol floating. It's like cycles within cycles within cycles, which is really how reality is, because we get stuck in our linear 3D world and like, oh, this is a cycle, but it's cycles within cycle. Again, Indra's net, that's like my theme today. Indra's net, like it's much more intricate than just a simple cycle of fate or cycle of Wheel of Fortune, right? A cycle of karma. Because karma, in the sense of cause and effect, yes, some things like I knock my water over, water's going to spill, right? It's cause the effect. But there's other things that happen, right? But that one's very simple. But in real life, it's kind of going back to justice. Our decisions, our actions have greater impact than we're aware of. We may think, oh, it's just this, I'm making this decision for me, but that might impact someone else or someone else or someone else and someone else and other things that you just don't think of. Not that we can like stress ourselves about trying to think about all the possible impacts, but just being aware we have greater impact than we think we do. They are pretty cards. Yeah, very colorful. It's a collage deck of like medieval Renaissance art, but collage done very, very well.
Yeah.
Because you could look at these and think they were just painted as is. So they're really well done.
I actually thought that when I first saw it. It's like, wow, this is beautiful paintwork.
Well, that's what I thought too. But then I read like, oh no, it's collage stuff.
Well done.
And then of course there's the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac: the eagles, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo. And she says here, this means getting to know our birth charts and the movements of the planets and lights overhead. I like how she kind of points out, like, it's important to know your astrology.
Yes, I remember that.
And maybe one last thing. The wheel suggests that we integrate ourselves with the flow, the cycles, and go with it instead of fighting it. We do not have to experience ourselves as being mowed down and run over by the process of time. Instead, we can learn to roll with the wheel, learn to work with the tenor of the seasons and the planets in the sky, which I like her approach on astrology, because that's how I see it. It's like you have your birth chart, your roadmap, and there might be certain types of experience you're just going to have to experience, but your choices and your actions and your attitude can really alter how you experience them and how you come out of it. So let's say it's like, oh yeah, your chart just on a segue here, your chart says, you'll probably be in some sort of, I don't know, health field. It would be something broad, right? Like, oh, you're probably going to be, let's say moon in the 10th. You're going to probably be a nurse or a caretaker, or being a mother's your job, right? And you can resist that all you want and end up in that situation in a way you would never want to be. That's horrible. Or you could say, oh, okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. I'm just going to like go follow my interest and see where it takes me. And if that's where it is, I'll choose a career that works for me rather than resist it. I don't know, and being stuck being a caretaker in a facility you hate, because you have no other job choice, right? So yeah, working with what comes your way or what you're given, but not in a fatalistic, deterministic way.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you do readings for some people, they're not happy with their job, and they want to know if there's something better out there. Of course, there's something better out there. That's for you to determine. But let's say if this card comes up, here's maybe a good example. This card may be telling you, because again, with karma, the cycle, you have to take the wheel of fortune is also the wheel of chance, so you may have to take what is being approached to you. You may not like it, but this is where you're supposed to be right now. And this is again what I was saying earlier, that I feel the second septenary is all involved being in the present moment and working with the forces and the energies that are there at this time. Don't push it away, because if you push it away, you're not growing. You're just going to let it, grow from a molehill to a mountain. Work with that energy right there and then. Don't push anything aside and not do anything. Move forward. Keep the momentum going. We've all been put in situations where we don't want to be where we are. Sometimes things are out of our control, but in this case, we have to learn how to work with what's going on at that time.
Yeah. So, and it's like I say, like keep things flowing, because stagnancy is really when we're hurting ourselves. And so Sadhana just says it's easier not to change jobs. There's courage needed to embrace the energy of this card. Yeah. So people are just like, I can't do anything. There's nothing out there. And sometimes it's really, really hard, but you can at least start looking, right? You can start putting the energy out there. But if you're like, oh, there's nothing, you cut yourself off, you stagnate, there's no growth, there's no flow, and then things can't change.
The other thing too is
an endless cycle instead of a moving one, right?
The other thing too is to change that direction. Even though I said not to control it, but if things aren't moving, what's that little ripple? What's that stone that you could throw into the water to just start making, again, the effort? I love Julianne because we almost think so much alike. I feel like I could finish her sentence, and sometimes she can finish my sentence. It's like, I was going to say that. But it's, just make that effort. Just keep some form of movement going. You got to make a little bit of a change to keep that wheel of fortune, if you will, move so that it could be in your best interest. I mean, normally this is a sign with Jupiter, so we have abundance, so on and so forth. But that's not the emphasis on this card.
It's Virgo energy, which is very interesting. I was just trying to remind me of what she said. I don't think she went into the Virgo energy.
No, she hardly talks about the planets, Julianne.
I didn't mark it in here. Normally I circle it. She talked about the 4 fixed signs, which is, it's on this, it's in the wheel of fortunes, right? 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. They're like the cornerstones of the zodiac, the cosmos, ourselves, our lives, our birth charts. I don't want to go into it.
Here. Let me read something here. At its simplest level, the wheel signifies nature, embracing all of us in the cycles of life, that of the moon or the seasons of the year. In order to succeed and thrive, we need to, it's coming up again, we need to stop fighting our relationship to this creation. the karma of our planet Earth and the material world, symbolized by the four suits.
Mhm.
This card challenges us to stop cooperating with the energies. Okay, the wording gets a little complex. This card challenges us to start cooperating, with the energies that compromise our substrate, including the autonomic processes that are built into our bodies and our psyches, or in our psyches. So things that we are already programmed and that we're normally conditioned. That's a very important word here. Is how to work out from that and use
It's
those.
not easy. I mean,
No,
you just say, "Oh yeah, you work out of it," but it's hard. Like Sadhana says, changing a job takes courage. Well, you don't have I think people get scared because it's like, oh, that's a huge thing. We'll do it in small.
Yeah.
Do it in small steps.
Yeah.
Just keep the energy flowing and moving.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stagnate. Don't be stuck on a piece of rock sticking out of the ocean or something, right? Let it keep flowing. Let it keep rolling. That's important.
And you can also use those 4 fixed signs, their strengths, as forms of guides to work through that. So, all signs have.
That's what they are. It's the fixed, right? It's often it's just like, oh, fixed sign is stubborn, but it's stable, it's secure, it's a foundation, right? It's the 4, right? The solid foundation, and then everything else works around it on top of however it grows. But don't get fixed, stubborn, and stuck and stagnating. Yeah.
Don't feel like you have to master all those 4 fixed signs. Embrace those qualities.
For those not aware of astrology, everyone has all the signs in their chart. If you're like, oh, I don't have any of those, you do. They just may not be your sun sign or your rising sign. Okay, so then we move on to strength. The astrological association is Mars. So it has that fire energy. So traditionally it's Leo, which is ruled by the sun, so fire energy. The quality here is life and vitality. So it still has that same energy where like RWS Thoth, this is ruled by Leo, ruled by the sun, which is life and vitality and energy. So it has a similar energy, having that Mars ruler as well. The strength card channels the immutable strength and relentlessness of wild nature, which is only ever temporarily tamed. The power that allows us to live and thrive can also recycle us at a moment's notice. And onto some of the Mars energy, she goes into the Kabbalah stuff. And she says, the basic contracts by which the Kabbalah tree emerges from its invisible source is that the father force of expansive space or fire pours out and emanates into matter. And so if you don't know, in Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, fire is you could say the highest element, the first. It's fire, air, water, earth, or fire, water. Well, because like tarot decks will be ordered this way as fire, water, air, earth. So the space, fire, pours out and emanates into matter, which precipitates the condensing force of time, water, in the mother as a response. On the tree, Mars is the middle sephira on the descending pillar corresponding to the right hand in the body. And this is her system because it's not quite, doesn't quite fit the kind of traditional associations, especially the astrological ones, astrological and tarot associations. This is the point in the materialization process at which an empowered individual begins to gain some personal capability, some sense of traction and leverage for implementing one's will. So, and we can see that, I'll hold it up now, the fire, the water coming from the breasts, the milk from the breasts, fire exploding hair, the fiery hair. The lion, even though this card is Mars, is still associated with Leo and the sun, so that's fire energy, but then we have the water balancing it out. And she says in the guide that this is air coming from her mouth. She's kind of ferocious. Her face. And she mentions this too in the guidebook. Like she's kind of scary. She's not the beautiful maiden like Beauty and the Beast. The Beauty and the Beast, right? It's she's got, you know, the sun and moon as her eyes and the stars, and like she's kind of like she's fiery smoking head, you know. It's sort of like, you know, what is this?
There's that saying, hell hath no fury than a woman scorn. So to
Yeah,
think about for this.
kind of, yeah, what you would see is like, breathing hot air and everything coming out. But it does excuse me, speak to that inner strength, you know. And you know how she says it's, you know, you can't, you know, nature's only tamed temporarily, which implies, you know, we have to continually work on you know, maybe not controlling, but taming our inner natures at times, depending on what's going on, right?
Automatically, when I saw this card, I was just, when I saw the woman and and um, and the lion, feminine, masculine energy right off the bat. And usually we would see in the strength card the feminine energy, different ways that they're taming that
Mm-hmm.
masculine or that animal side of them. Sometimes they're holding it. There's some cards where the mouth is open and the feminine energy is looking towards or into the mouth of that masculine force. But here it's strength, it's willpower, it's having no fear. It holds all those attributes in relation to the lion, to Leo, but putting it into that fiery form. It's taking it into action. It's taking its courage, its strength, its willpower, and putting it into action, but also manifesting it in a spiritual side as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing, I have here a quote that I wrote, a strength is showing how we're equal with the divine intelligence that nature has created for us individually.
Mm-hmm.
And also align. What's that?
Sorry, I was going to add in, going like on with that. Christine writes here, there is no us versus them in the planetary mind. It is therefore our responsibility to recognize our kinship and relatedness and to cease engaging with ideas that cause us to take adversarial stances against each other. Because again, this septenary is about the collective, the community, the public, the welfare of everyone, right? Yeah. So we're going to see that in all the cards. Yeah, I mean, this is like a powerful strength card. It has much more power to it than, like, compared to this one. This is soft. It's like, oh yeah, have compassion and tame your passions, la la la, you know, great, you have the inner strength. And this is like, be ferocious and find that spiritual force within you. It takes energy. This is an energetic card, which is the Mars energy as well. That's, you know, Mars is activity and movement, and you know, he rules athletics. Like, you got to do stuff. It's not so passive as like this one looks. Yeah,
That's a feminine aspect. I like Iridescent C's comment. She saw fire, but the nurturing side is the breast milk that's coming forth. So again, yes, it's the feminine, it's the confident energy, and utilizing it. You know, I this is going to sound funny. I sort of relate to the strength card in the sense that, you know, you're trying to balance your feminine side, but because I have quite a bit of fire in my chart, you know, I like that action, but I also have an earth sign where it keeps that energy grounded at the same time. So I have something to hold me back.
Yeah,
so
I
when
totally relate to this too. Well,
you're
my
Leo.
chart. I'm a lot of fire and water, and like my air, outer planets and stuff, and it's like, only thing I have is Mars and Virgo and Earth. Like, so like this balance, and sometimes it's a struggle. Like, there's the fiery side of me, and then there's the watery side of me, and they can be very opposing at times. So I see it. There's times where I'm like really like creative and busy and active, and other times where I'm just like, oh, I just want to relax for a few days and do nothing, because like that watery energy takes over. and like my rising is Sagittarius, which is fire, but Jupiter, my ruler, is conjoined my moon in Pisces. So that's like this constant, and I've learned to really just work with the flow of it rather than resist it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, I have the time to do this. Why am I just like sitting and reading something totally unrelated to it or something, you know? Yeah, but so I can totally relate to this fire, and then nurturing water, self-care, take care of yourself. But if I flow with it, kind of going back to like go with the flow of things, you know, I'm actually, you know, overall very productive and industrious, and I need to learn like those times where like the water energy takes over. It's like, oh, this is time to kind of recharge and rest and let things incubate, that nurturing energy. Things need to incubate, and when the energy is there to then put it into action, it's there, right? So that's kind of what this energy is like. You can only tame nature temporarily, but you have to flow with it too.
The wonderful thing about this deck is, I think it's a deck that is so honest, and it calls
Yeah.
it calls people out. It's almost like it's a judgment deck, because it's allowing you, or it's guiding you to really, really get into those recesses of things and discover your full potential.
Yeah.
Because of
But we have to be called out on
yes,
our BS or ways of thinking, or just stagnating. I don't think that's done enough, especially in
no,
communities, because I think there's a lot of bypassing, like, oh no, it's just this, or oh no, but it's like, no, call people out on their BS.
that's why decks.
Beyond you, you know.
That's why decks like the Doth deck,
Mm-hmm.
this deck, decks that go really into the philosophy behind the meanings of this,
Yeah.
really opens up that side. So you don't get the softer side of the RWS. You get the meat, potatoes, how it was processed, where
Yeah.
it came from, the sources, everything. This deck encompasses humanity, and it's broken down,
Yeah.
from
This deck,
dust.
like when we call this a soft deck, right? But it's got this in it,
Yeah.
but you don't see it so apparently as you do in these images.
Yeah.
Right. So this is like the hidden, it's the esoteric right
The hidden,
behind the
correct.
esoteric deck of this.
Correct.
Deeper layers, and she's like totally gone into them, changed some of the systems around, like the astrology and stuff. Yeah, it opens up all other decks when you study this deck.
I have something else I want to say that I wrote down here. We have two forms of strength in this card.
Mm-hmm.
There's the spiritual strength and the feminine strength. Okay, so the spiritual strength in relation to the heart, spiritually, how we feel and how we connect to who we are, subconscious realm, but also how we feel about that. The principles, and also, I think I mentioned this, our inner conviction and integrity that comes towards our practice. And when I say spirituality, it's also, that's making reference to who we are at a deeper level. That's my take. So the deeper side of us is our heart, where we hold our spirituality, the principles, the morals, the values, if you will, in our spiritual self, and also, again, inner conviction and integrity, how we bring that out to people. And here, this card is really, sharing. She goes really close. It's really expressing. It's very fiery, Julia. then
It's like
there's
a fairy doll.
then here's the feminine side. It's the compassion, empathy, and the sensitivity. Okay. We don't see it too much here, but those are the essence of the feminine side of us that we need to sometimes work on more or hold back less on. And so it's that balance of those two, spiritual and feminine strength.
Well, I just realized that the lion is wearing a laurel wreath.
Yes. Victory.
Victory. Yep. But the lion's wearing it, and he's not He's not being contained.
He doesn't look too happy either, but
Yeah.
but that's the ego talking.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just like he's being protective. That could be the
Mhm.
protective look too.
Yeah.
So I take that back.
And that could be like part of the Mars energy too, because like a soldier wins a battle or something.
Okay.
You
I
know,
never
but
saw that.
when
Thank
the
you.
Olympians wore it, and that the Olympic Games were held at times of, well, they made peace, or peace was called to have the Olympic Games so people wouldn't fight, but the games took place of war. So it's like the victor, like that could be connected to the Mars energy, the athlete and the soldier.
I never saw it like that, but that fits well.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Again, like, because there's so much detail in this, yeah, very well put together collage. Like you could sit with the cards and just like stare at them, do one card reading for a whole month and sit with a card and read the guidebook.
Yeah, there's a lot to pull.
Okay. Anything else? I think
Does anyone have any questions? I
yeah,
know
any
we've been on for an hour.
or,
I'm happy you're listening.
yeah. Oh, bye, Sadhana. You're probably long gone, but
Oh yeah, she left a while ago.
you're still
Bye,
listening in the
Sadhana.
background.
So if anyone has any questions, I mean, we're
Just pop them in.
more cards in. Yeah, it's
If
wonderful
we
to
don't know all
listen.
the answers. We have questions too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many layers iridescency. I know. I feel like even though these are long videos we're doing, like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what to say without talking for 8 hours long. Okay, moving on to the Hanged Man.
Ooh.
The system, it's ruled by Libra. Which is interesting because like you think of the Hanged Man and the way his arms are out, it kind of looks like a scale. Right? The quality house of coition. And I don't know what that word is. I actually want to look it up.
That's union. It's union, Julianne.
Union?
Yeah.
Physical union of male and female genitalia accompanied by rhythmic movements. Oh, like coitus. Okay. Sometimes she uses like obscure words, and I'm like, what is that?
I think she's making reference maybe to the symbol here.
Right.
The Ouroboros, the union.
So what I liked, the first sentence, sorry about the screaming in the background. The Hanged Man is upended, suspended, and I like this part, undefended. So vulnerability, right? A willing sacrifice to the principle of non-resistance. Because it does mean surrender, but it's not like surrender, give up, you lose. It's surrender, let yourself be, the willingness to be there, maybe as a sacrifice, maybe as just to let yourself be vulnerable to what can be, to learning something, to be different. This is kind of just all about change. Like the resistance to change is the fear of being vulnerable and something going wrong, right? Yes. So in its purest form, the Hanged Man represents an initiatory exercise, a personal sacrifice undertaken by an individual at a certain level of spiritual development. In this trump, the commitment is supreme. The Hanged Man views the world through the inner or third eye from this awkward and helpless position. Mm-hmm. Like getting outside of ourselves. I often do say that with like the Hanged Man, getting out of our heads. Getting outside of ourselves involves us being vulnerable. And you could say like through ecstasy. Ecstasy means to stand outside of yourself, to put yourself in a state, whether it's through meditation or dance or hanging upside down, literally, like you get into a state outside of your everyday conscious mind of daily life. So you can be open and vulnerable to seeing things differently, different perspective, right? The Hangman. Like seeing things, getting guidance, messages from your inner self that you wouldn't otherwise. And she calls it a talisman. Better to see Trump 12 as a talisman of a voluntary awakening that involves upending one's perspective by pitting the consciousness of the crown chakra at the feet and
Mm-hmm.
putting the consciousness of the root chakra at the crown. Yeah, so flipping ourselves upside down, getting out of ourselves. And she keeps putting reminders in. Remember, the second septenary addresses the collective consciousness. Therefore, the hangman exemplifies the willing sacrifice of matter to spirit, the turn the other cheek.
Yes.
The soft answer poured out into the wrath to still its restlessness. And she goes, selflessness is the watchword here, doing the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. The hangman lets go of personal interest and devotes his vitality and energies to the causes that the universe will dictate. Yeah. Yeah. So letting ourselves go, it's sort of like surrendering some of our selfishness, some of our ways that we limit ourselves so that we can think of others, right? Think of the collective, think of the community, the collective consciousness, the collective, our actual, society and communities around us. Bye, Jen.
Bye, Jen. Thank you. Thank you. I think with this card, out of the septenary that we've been, out of the second septenary, this card really holds true to its meaning all across all systems, RWS, so on and so forth. And I think it is important to really change those things around. So I remember when having my yoga practice, one of the things that one of my teachers said to me was just like, if things are really up in the air, there's no clarity or anything, she says, do a handstand, go upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And when you literally go upside down, something happens here in the mind, all that force and pressure that's being put at the lower level of our bodies is getting reversed. It's like those toys that you shake, that has the sand and the snow and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it around, give it a new feel, give that lower realm, this is my perspective, give that lower realm, the lower part of the chakras, a break, and flip things around. Work with this energy more. This is the subconscious. Let's let go of the conscious a little bit, and let's focus more from the heart up, the heart, the throat, the third eye to the crown chakra. Flip it around. We activate it that way.
Yeah. I like the idea of like uprooting ourselves, uprooting our root chakra. And because if we're too rooted, I mean, there's one being grounded and
correct,
right? But if we're too rooted, that implies being stubborn and stuck, right? So this is like totally unsticking ourselves and turning ourselves upside down. Yeah.
Also, for those who are watching, I just saw this, Julianne. Look at I feel like our attention is sort of focused here when I look at this card. This is just a perceptive thing. Okay, so everything's focused. It feels a little bit more heavy here. But look, when you turn it around, it's spacious.
Yeah, and it's like he's holding the light.
I don't think he's holding. I feel like he could be releasing.
We're receiving it.
Receiving it, yes. Yeah. And then the triangle here is the heart triangle, which is going to culminate and be a significant sign when we get to the temperance. So this is part of the process here. Yeah. And then she doesn't talk too much about the 7.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? This is
felt
actually
connected to the tree of life.
Triangle. Okay.
Excuse me, because that's a tree, right?
It's just the placement, the way it's organized. I was just like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but she doesn't talk about it in the guidebook, really. Okay. It might be in the second book, which I have not read, but it's similar to positions on the tree of life.
Okay.
And he's just hanging from the tree, right? He's not actually tied up at all.
Nope.
He's just suspended in complete suspension.
But also putting trust.
Mm-hmm.
There's that
I will
faith.
float here inside the Ouroboros snake, and I will be just fine.
Yeah, his force, what's holding him up there is his own faith, his own belief. So
Whereas
that's his will. It's just
this
like,
guy is actually tied to the
yeah,
tree, right?
there's still that connection.
Yeah, still an earthly connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I think that's the gist of what I wanted to talk about there.
We want to go through this with enough time, but there's just so much information we could, Julianne knows that we can do
Buy the
this.
textbook, read it yourself. Highly recommend.
Spend hours on just one card.
Even if you don't have the deck. Okay, so we move on to death. Dun, dun, dun. And she talks about it in the guidebook, like people are like, the death card. So death is associated with water, where in traditional systems before Neptune, the hanged man was water, right? Okay, so specifically Mem from the Hebrew alphabet, which is water. In traditional systems, RWS, it's Scorpio, which is a water sign, so it still has like a similar watery energy. The quality is dissolving, surrender, pan of merit, and time. So here she says, death portrays the realm of dissolution and surcease, where all structure and differentiation collapse into a seemingly lifeless substrate. Very cheery. We can only attain divine forgiveness when all ego ties to the past have been severed. Death marks the third term of our fire triangle of the septenary. Oh yeah, so we didn't mention this. The first three, justice, hermit, and wheel, she called the light triangle, and
This
these
is the
past
fire.
three fire triangle. So it's still thesis, antithesis, and this is now synthesis. Bringing a synthesis between the two previous terms. So, okay, so this is not because it always means a literal death. So this card is not because I'm jumping around as I read a literal death, but because of the much more real and frightening possibility of radical and permanent change with no going back. So that is like, she stresses, like, that is what is so scary about the death card. Not so much that it might come up in a reading and someone's like, am I going to die? It's like, it implies like a big change.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to bury the past with it. You can't, it's like you got to bury something to bring about this change, right? Because often people say, oh, death is rebirth, la, la, la. And it is, but there has to be a death, an ending. So it's like the ultimate change card, right? There's got to be a big change. Yeah, death card signals the alchemical furnace of transmutation, and we're ready to release everything that made it possible for us to exist in the old context, even up to being obliterated from the known universe. Death is also the path of the phoenix or firebird in the sense of the old Greek myth of the eons. Yeah, and the water. So there's not technically an astrology association, it's an element, represents the flow of time and the life of manifested creatures. There is a time to be born and a time to die. And that's actually quoting Ecclesiastes in the Bible, as is the song. So yeah, it's ultimate shift and change. You got the guy in the grave, accepting, like kissing. You can say, snakes, and it's a dragon, but dragons represent transformation. They shed their skin, but also finding your treasure, which is interesting. Because they represent wealth or prosperity, but it's often through some sort of major challenge, initiation, and an initiatory experience often involves sometimes facing death, but a major change. You must release the old and be born into the new you. So it's like accepting death. I'm like pointing at the screen, accepting death, kissing it, accepting, what needs to be let go of, here's like the funeral pyre, but from that, that phoenix energy, which in a traditional deck, phoenix is also associated with Scorpio. Scorpio has 7 or 8 animals besides the scorpion. because it's like the eagle, which is the common one.
Correct.
I think salamander and phoenix and peacock, because peacock is places a phoenix, and I think there's the dragon also. Yeah, as I went off on
I didn't know the Phoenix was associated with Scorpio. Well,
Yeah.
I guess transformation and
a
rebirth.
whole- But usually, if it's not the scorpion, you'll see the eagle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really like, okay, what has got to go? You know, like if a death card comes up in a reading, what has got to go? What am I hanging on to that's actually holding me back?
Mhm.
And yeah, that's scary because you have to bury it, probably miss it and grieve it. But often, sometimes we know this. We're like, oh, this has to go, but we're hanging on to it. And just yesterday with a client, I was like using the analogy because it was actually with the tower card, but similar concept. Like it's like when you kind of go through your clothes and you're like, oh, I should probably donate some, but there's like that shirt and that sweater and those things. You're like, oh, but I love this and I love wearing it. Oh, but it's getting tattered and it's getting old, and I should probably let it go. And it's so hard to let it go, but once you put it in those bags and you drop it off at the donation place, you're like, oh, okay, that's not bad. Now I get to buy a new sweater or something, right? So it's like, but it's the process and the approaching the death that's hard. But the death, the change, the decision that leads to that, or if you're changing things in your life, once you're through it and you're on the other side of the rebirth, it's not as horrible as we fear.
It isn't.
It's
No.
the approaching, it's the anticipation of it, the second guessing ourselves, is this the right decision? Is this what I need to do? That's, I think, what's more scary about it, rather than like, the process wasn't all
Yeah.
that bad.
You just read my mind. Stop. I was just going to say that. I was just going to say process.
All day. You can die.
I think it's just the work. I think people know what's up ahead, but it's just that point. Oh my God. Again, like what Julianne was saying, it's just all the work. Should you do this? You need to do it. It's time to move on. And, you can use our changes of the seasons. We're going into autumn in a few more weeks. And also we're waning in our season. Sorry, I'm not going to sidetrack too much, but this is a time of letting go. This is the second phase. The first phase is like spring. Now we go in fall, but this is stuff that we really release, that we really let go of, and that we know will be to our best benefit so that we can grow and move on. Here, this card doesn't show the process that happens afterwards. This shows what's going on at that moment when you decide to accept death.
And it's a little haunting with like the faded skeleton.
It's like the conscious to the subconscious to the celestial, and then it just disappears into nothing. I want to read something here. The death icon presents the archetype of the true deadline beyond which the old manner of being, the old arrangement, is no longer viable. So you clearly made that commitment to like, I'm done with it. I'm done. I've already gotten what I needed from it, or it's already killed me as much as it's already taken so much of me. I feel like I'm already ready for a change. Sometimes that's forced upon you. When you accept that, then that you will be moving in a direction where you have a new perspective, a new feeling, a new inner strength about going towards things.
And Iridescent C points out that the dragon has wings, so it's not earthbound.
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, with the dragon, it's taking that energy and it's just like it's taking it out into the cosmos. It's like it took the soul, it took the old soul, the karmic soul, if you will, and exchanged the energy. The dragon takes it and flies away with it. Takes it to a different level.
Transforms it.
Yeah.
Or guides it through its transformation.
Yes, it's the guide. It's the guide. It doesn't actually do anything with it. It moves it away. I think I have one more. The death card can be paradoxical in that sometimes the termination will represent the best outcome for all concerned. That's it. Done deal.
And just to point out, like in RWS, you do see some of the rebirth, right? You see the
Yeah.
child who's kind of in wonder, he's not scared, and the right. Well, you can just say it's setting, the setting and or rising sun, although it mocks the moon card, right, on the
Oh,
horizon.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it has some hints of newness, rebirth, life. Yeah. But not too dissimilar between these two.
Yeah. It's just the interpretation of the process.
And then the details.
Yeah. The RWS shows the approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then here with the death card, we see the actual action that's taking place.
One thing I find funny in this card is like, get it.
It's
This
the
old
man?
guy. I'm like, is that like a
I think
a sadhu? Like, oh, what's going on?
you know what, Joanne?
Over.
I think she makes reference that this is someone who's jumping into their own grave. I
Oh,
think she made reference to something like that. And I didn't know what she was talking about until I was looking at the card. It's like, who is jumping into their grave or maybe coming out?
yeah.
Um, it's somewhere in there.
Oh, here it is, like the man melting into his
Yes.
grave. Is he melting into it? Okay. Yeah, I think I just was like, oh, what's she talking about?
It's like, you got to look for it.
Yeah. So that's our lovely death.
And it is.
And then our last card for the septenary. So we had the two groupings of threes, right? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and then temperance is sort of like the last one of the septenary is sort of the culmination of the septenary,
Yes.
you could say. So it's associated with the sign of Scorpio, which is interesting, again, to think of that because Scorpio is normally associated with death card. And the quality is the house of death. Sorry, my voice is giving out already. Okay. But if you think about temperance, alchemy, to bring things together, you have like whatever you're bringing together in the alchemical process, or you could say turning lead into gold. The lead has to die to become the gold, right? So here she says, attention now shifts from the process of dissolution to the process of transformation as it is lived in consciousness by one who is undergoing it. And so it's sort of a continuation of what we said with the death card, right? The angel's mission is to awaken the immortal soul from its dormancy within matter, so within the body, using whatever methods are required. It sounds a bit harsh. Sorry, loud airplane. This purification process greatly reduces the bulk of the matter, but exponentially increases the concentration and quality of what remains. So it's like breaking out of our hold on matter. And this is, I think, why it's called the house of death. It doesn't require physical death, but breaking our hold on matter, which is what death is about, and letting the soul free to grow exponentially or like release itself in greater amounts. Is that the right? in greatness. And she talks about the dove, because we mentioned the dove earlier in Hermit, the dove on top, and said, oh, it's brought back up in Temperance. The dove, symbol of Sophia and Holy Spirit, is the unique bearer of the germ of the soul. The dove moves in all directions between the heavenly and earthly planes, mimicking the shaman's role of affecting communication between the worlds. Also signifying election, the dove marks the initiated soul for immortality, which I really love. And you can see that with the hermit, who is a guide for the souls in the physical realm. Yeah. So the dove is not just a symbol of peace, right? It's a symbol of, it's basically a psychopomp, like Mercury, connecting the soul and matter to its divineness, right?
I feel the dove is almost the spiritual enlightenment of the phoenix. It's like it's the ultimate. Once the phoenix has gone, it goes to another realm. And so that just came to my mind. It's like
Yeah.
this could actually be the culmination, a
Right.
piece, the fiery energy that we have, and then
Mhm.
the release.
Right. And like symbolically, doves are usually depicted as all white, although not all doves are all white,
Yeah.
right? And so that's that purity that's gone through purification, right? And the purity of the soul, the phoenix that has risen up. Um, and then what's interesting here is like she points out, we saw in the chariot card, okay, pulled out somewhere. The two opposites of yin yang yoked together to pull the same vehicle. So just to review, this is the chariot card.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, because I did a client reading yesterday and I was using the Hanson Roberts deck and I was pointing out the yin yang in the chariot card a lot. So I was like,
That's interesting.
synchronicities.
Yeah.
How they're yoked together. And temperance means finding a living balance, a liquid balance, a flexible balance of mediated opposites, the yin and the yang, that supports life beyond the ministry of the reaper, which is the death card. So, and there's that, the two vessels pouring, yeah, it's all backwards, pouring the water, in a sense, balance. And we see, injustice, the scales, the balance, two elements there, repeated motifs throughout the deck.
Yeah. I was
And
writing some notes, Julianne. I'm sorry.
that's fine. And I like how she puts a question here. What can I learn from it?
Yeah.
The question we should always be asking ourselves. Anything else I wanted to point out? Oh yeah. I like how she pointed this out. In terms of the individual psyche, this temperance would represent the moment when one finally realizes that the I, in quotes, of our self-referencing is not the body, nor the ego, nor the emotions, nor the mind, but the immortal soul, the spark of light within, which is indeed made in the image of God. This is the seat of identity and the key to our ultimate transcendence. You can say temperance, the alchemy that happens within us, is really understanding who the I, or you could say the individual soul, what is that? This is like the I am. It's not I, the ego, identity, Julie. That's a little I, right? But it's like temperance is about finding, understanding, seeing, knowing the I am, I'll say it that way, within ourselves.
Yeah.
And then alchemy begins to take place.
Mm-hmm. It's a personal alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
As everything is starting to be transformed, as we're starting to let go, from the death card, purify. It's one thing that she does mention. She mentions it a few times with temperance. And I think this is a wonderful example. You think of it not so much alchemy, but just things are going on within us.
Mm-hmm.
Temperance is modify, blend, and diluted life's poisons or toxins, any negative energy, any force of that nature, into medicine of awakening. Sometimes we do need to learn from some of these harder experiences that we go through. But what comes out of that, once things have been siphoned through and whatnot, there's going to be some remnants. There's going to be a little bit of those, the residue left over from those experiences. But that residue is just the reminder of where we came from. Okay, it's not the big, it's not the big pain that we're holding on to. We've let go. We've learned how to work with it. We've learned how to break it down. This is what temperance is: breaking down all that negativity, all that heavy, toxic as heavy poisons that isn't letting us to move on. But by doing that and getting rid as much as we can as possible, we learn how to shapeshift with that and work with anything that's still hanging on. Because I think I may have mentioned this. We never really, you may beg to differ, Juliette, we never really get rid of karma entirely. There's still going to be scars. There's still going to be
here.
Yeah. that's it. Karma is just the connection to our conscious self, until something, unless we become spiritually awakened in such a way that you become amnesiac about what's happened in the
Well,
past.
unless we return to source.
Yeah.
Right? We wouldn't be here. We can't be here without karma. So karma, the root word means actions,
Mhm.
right? So if we do anything, there is karma, right?
It's action, correct.
Yes, there's a view like, oh, karma is what keeps us incarnating, and people like, I don't want to be incarnated, life sucks, blah, 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 blah. But you're still doing action, and you have to accept like, oh, I have a role in karma. Karma isn't something that happens to me. I am an active participant in the actions of life.
Mm-hmm. I follow.
And once we integrate into that and we understand the I am, that is in ourselves, that's in everyone.
Yeah.
Then it's like once we fully accept the karma in all its many like manifestations, trying to do it without like going in a 1-hour talk on karma, then we can be free of karma. Then we stop the cycle of incarnation. Then we can return to source, or I don't know, some other realm, wherever we go.
And again, that's purification.
Mm-hmm.
Being, how to work through all of those processes, but be real about it and really let go of it so that you can get to these upper levels of growth as an individual,
right?
Spiritually, emotionally, physically, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But also understanding where this energy came from, Remember your original state of nature. I think that's one of the things that she mentions here. Actually, let me read right here. What remains after having burned out and eroded away every previous stance and worldview is our original nature. The pure essence of spirit being the dove there, if you want to read it like that, which the pure essence of spirit, which has been with us all along. It's almost going like we're born innocent. Everyone's born innocent until they do something, and then that, that kind of sets the path as to who they are. But we could all have been born bad, and then we make these choices and we go in this direction. So it's
everyone is different.
Everyone is different. It's all different approach. I just use that example just to show that regardless, we can make ourselves who we are based on our actions. But if we go on the right path, great. If we go on the wrong path, then that's your choice.
Right. They're both lessons, right?
Yeah.
Paths of lessons. On the Scorpio energy, she does mention here, only in Scorpio, I'll have to backtrack so it makes sense. This card, she was talking about the reversal. Okay. Let's start here. Only in Scorpio, in this pressure cooker atmosphere, and that's because Scorpio is a sign of transformation, right? Sometimes a lot of pressure isn't like to turn coal into a diamond. A lot of pressure is needed to transform it. We can convert our ancient karmic poisons and deficits into the medicine of spiritual rebirth. Only after we've been melted down, rendered, poured out, right, transformed, do we finally become pure. And it's through that process, finally, we learn to stop fighting with ourselves. And I think that's both fighting with our own selves and fighting among ourselves. I think it's implying both. So in essence, it's kind of she says it here, it's a great surrender. It's what the whole septenary has been leading up to, but it's like going even deeper from the hangman. Like the hangman's the start of that surrender and letting go.
Yeah.
And temperance is the alchemy. And she points out here, this is not the end. This is not the end. In her summary, from this point on, we learn to operate from the perspective of eternity and then take responsibility from our place of celestial order. where did I mark it here? So far, we have merely crossed the ground that brings one up to the door of entry into the mysteries, right? So this is not our end goal. This is just the door. We've made it to the door. We've only made it this far.
We're midway.
The tarot represents the process through a staged set of initiations, each with its own observances and with its own time frame that has to be lived out day by day. And she goes into, many lifetimes of study and experiences. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, it's
stage in our cycle of transformation or evolution and alchemy. Yeah.
And that's what the major arcana is. It's, we've already said this a few times. It's the journey. You got the 3 stages. We're in the middle part of it. And then this is the antithesis. I'm pronouncing
Antithesis.
Antithesis. Thank you, Julianne. The antithesis part of our major arcana. And then when we get to the last 7 or 8 cards, we see the synthesis. So in each septenary, there's the I'm so sorry with the pronunciation.
Antithesis.
Antithesis. Thank you.
Yeah. And she says here for the intro for the 3rd septenary, which will be our next one.
Yes.
3rd septenary, we are facing the biggest challenges that the tarot offers the individual soul. And we'll leave it there. Leave a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because you guys know what comes next.
It's just how to do it.
Favorite cards in the deck. But I want to point out too, so in traditional RWS, Temperance is the Sagittarius card, right? And so we look at the triangles, we have the fire, and here we have the water. So it's just looking at those 2 pieces, I'll hold that up.
There you go, in comparison.
There's a different energy to it. The fire, a lot of people don't see that, right? The fire triangle and the water triangle. But I like how on here, it's actually a pyramid, right? It's positioned in such a way that she is standing sort of on a fire triangle, which is interesting. And with that Scorpio association in traditional astrology, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, which is fire energy. So it's a synthesis of fire and water again, which I guess we do have in RWS as well. So that still carries through.
And also, I believe this is the angel. She makes reference to Raphael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So healing, the angel of healing, which I associate with water. Not everyone does. People have their own systems. Because water is nurturing.
Yeah. And also the motion of the water. So we're seeing the movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see the movement, the water moving here.
And just staying afloat, having that.
She talks about is Temperance floating on the water, floating over it, in it,
Yeah. If I say on top
maybe all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So that is our 2nd septenary exploration as we're learning it with you.
I'm looking back at my notes here.
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions on those,
and also when we come back again, because we have the 3rd septenary, and then we're the last part of this deck will be the court cards, and that'll round it up.
Yeah.
If you have this deck, let us know what your experience is.
Yeah. Or if you're watching this later, comment, let us know, or ask questions below if you're watching this later.
Yeah, because it's very complex, but this is our feel. We like to know what you think too as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And if there's any confusion or uncertainty, let us know. Give us again your perspective of what you think about this.
Yeah, because we're learning this deck with you.
Yeah.
And there is a full playlist because we've gone through all the pit minors, the numbered minors.
Yes.
And now 2/3 of the majors. And again, we'll do the third septenary next time, hopefully next month.
Yeah.
And then we just have the courts. So probably do that and just break it down in two.
Yeah, and
That's a
then
lot.
we'll be done.
It would be like a 4
It's
hours.
just too long. Done.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
No questions popping in. So yeah, anything else you want to add?
Myself,
Back to it.
it would be another extended conversation. But don't be fearful. I say this. Don't be fearful of this deck. Thank you. Thank you, Iridescency. Don't be fearful of this deck. Take it little by little. This is for the next phase. This deck for someone who wants to extend their tarot practice.
Yeah.
Some people said you could go into this deck new. I wouldn't do it.
I was just going to say, if you're new to tarot and this is your first deck, it's a lot, it's intense, but it will give you a good foundation. But don't let it intimidate you. And you got to read the guidebook.
Yeah, look at Julianne's book. Hold it up again.
Oh,
look at all the tarot.
I did this with the minors. I'm not doing it with the majors. It was like an experimental thing. I did that with another book I was reading. Like,
I'm just pointing
tabs.
Yeah, I'm just pointing. I'm not making fun of Julianne. I'm just pointing out that that's how much information there is in this deck. Yeah. And so, and one thing I say it every time we do our lives. This is a self-help deck. Thank you, Tammy Pie. It really gets you to, going deeper. And there's some decks that people,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's some decks that people say, oh yeah, it's RWS or whatever. Oh, this deck is so deep. This, I feel.
Well, I think anytime you study a deck in depth like this, it just becomes like a self-help tool because you're really working with it.
Yeah.
And you can't but not integrate that into your beingness and your life, right? Even if you're not even doing readings with the deck yet, you're just like, you read the dense guidebook and you're like, you contemplate on it. You're like, oh, and you reflect on your life in relation to the card that you're studying. So that's pretty cool.
Slow down the way that you learn the tarot with this deck.
Yeah.
Hands down. And this just came into mind. I feel the tarot of the Holy Light is the High Priestess. The High Priestess is esoteric. It has that key to the knowledge that a lot of us don't know. And so when looking at the cards and just reflecting back, it's like the Tarot of the Holy Light. If I was to pick a card, I think it would be the High Priestess because it holds the mysterious stuff.
The knowledge, the secrets, the esoterica, right?
Yeah.
In many layers. And then also in modified systems.
Yeah. And you see the difference. You go from this deck, you go back to RWS or a different deck, you'll be like, wow. Yeah. It definitely changes. It definitely changes the way your practice is. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, tarot trainee, everyone else who's here, was here. And again, if you're watching this later, share your thoughts below, questions. We'll try to answer them, or we'll question with you. Yeah. All right. So have a good day, everyone.
Right.
I'll sign
Thank
out.
you, everyone.
Bye.